Hello everyone and welcome back to your favourite Letterboxd log show. This is the monthly last month I watched series on this channel. This is the first one for 2022. It's not the first episode of 2022 because in January we covered December 2021. But in terms of having 2022 in the title, this is the first one. That's pretty fucking exciting. And we've got some great films lined up for this month, including a return to a galaxy far, far away, somewhere I hadn't been for a whole year beforehand. Before we jump into things as usual, if you like these videos, feel free to like them and let me know I'm doing something right with the content. And if you're unfamiliar with the rating system on this show, feel free to click that first link in the description. That's going to take you a quick run through all of the ratings justifications, including some controversial examples in my personal opinion. We started it off with Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, and followed it up with Episode 2, Attack of the Clones. I think it was really interesting watching these films back for the first time, not being a part of what is called Star Wars Twitter, where I feel like I have to like these movies, because it was a real eye-opening experience on some of them. Star Wars Episode 1 I gave a 2 stars, but Star Wars Episode 2 Attack of the Clones I gave a 3.5. Also on the first, I did watch Revenge of the Sith, rounding out the prequels in one sitting, and I gave it a 3 star. Honestly, if not for the fact that this has the Obi-Wan and Anakin fight, this would be on par with the Phantom Menace for me. It just isn't that interesting past that. You know, you can have other examples of what you think are great scenes, but for me, it just, none of it does it apart from the fight, and even then, the dialogue is so all over the place. I'm not going to go too much into detail with each of these rankings, because it may or may not be coming back in a different video later on in this year. On the 2nd of January, we headed into spin-off territory, and we started off with Solo, which is a movie that I still fucking love dearly, and I gave it a 4.5 stars. I think it is out of this world crazy good. Solo just breathes new life into this franchise, and it's not a bore fest like the next film we're going to talk about. It's something completely different, and while still being a Star Wars movie, and that is something that I really, really hope we see more of. We're starting to see it with The Mandalorian and The Book of Boba Fett. I want more. Then we moved on to Rogue One in the same day, and guys, I'm sorry, it's just, I don't like it at all. You're allowed to love this movie, you're allowed to think this is your favourite Star Wars movie. For me, this is probably the worst one by a country mile. Even though it's only 0.5 less with The Phantom Menace sitting at a 1.5 stars, I just don't think this movie has any merit whatsoever. Continue on the theme of 3 films per day, I watched Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope. And this is a movie that I've often been very critical of, and saying it doesn't really feel that, you know, engaging to me anymore, but watching it this time, I really have a whole nother level of love for this film. I gave that a 4.5 stars, and then on the 3rd of January, I then went on to watch Empire Strikes Back, which also gained a 4.5 stars, as well as Return of the Jedi, which I gave a 4. On the 3rd, we did also take a break from Star Wars because I didn't want to completely burn myself out that early on, and so I watched Gone Girl, which is a film that I really fucking like. Gave it a 5 stars, first 5-star movie of 2022. Obviously it's a rewatch, so it remains to be seen what the first 5-star movie of 2022 is, and, you know, new releases is going to be. And then on the 4th, we watched the Sequel Trilogy. Now, the Sequel Trilogy has always been my favourite trilogy, and it continues to be. Star Wars The Force Awakens coming in is now my favourite Star Wars movie with a 5-star rating, followed by Star Wars The Last Jedi with a 4.5, and Finding the Rise of Skywalker also donning a 4.5, because yes, you can like both of those, that's not a hate crime. Took a little break on the 5th, but on the 6th I took my first cinema visit of 2022, and I went to see The Matrix Ressurections, which, you know, I actually liked given a lot of the criticism that it had when I was going into seeing it. Very much mixed. I gave it a 3.5 star rating purely for the fact that a lot of the stuff with the long-haired Keanu Reeves, I loved that part of those parts of the movie, even though they were exposition dumps for the most part. It helped that, you know, I hadn't seen the movies like before going to watch it recently. But then stuff with bald Neo, I'm just not a fan. That reminded me so much of, you know, the aspects that I didn't like of the original trilogy, which is just the other 2 films past the original. But yeah, 7 out of 10. I thought the visuals were great. I thought characters were fun. That probably is where the movie shines. On to the 7th, and I took a recommendation of a friend to watch a film called The Accountant, and I'm never taking a recommendation off of that friend ever again. 1.5 stars. Moving on to the 8th, we watched Django Unchained, which I gave a 4.5 stars, and following that up with Netflix's Don't Look Up, which I gave 3 stars. Thought that one was fine. Leonardo DiCaprio was easily the standout of that movie. Again, I don't think it's as bad as people were trying to make out, but I still don't think it was anything amazing. I think it tries too hard to be funny. But for what it is, it was 2 hours of fun. It didn't offend me in any way. It just sort of happened. I started off the 10th of January by watching Palm Springs, which was recommended to me by a friend of the channel in Blair. He told me he didn't know if I'd like this movie or not, and I ended up actually having a lot of fun with it. I think it was the perfect amount of over-the-top comedy that I just had a great time watching it. I just had a really solid time, and so I gave it 4 stars. Later on the same day, I then sat down to watch Guns Akimbo because it came up suggested on Amazon Prime afterwards, and I thought, hey, I'm meant to see that. I like that meme of Daniel Radcliffe having the mental breakdown in the city streets. And you know what? I liked the movie. It was another 8 out of 10. I thought it was a lot of fun. And then on the 11th, you know why we started this franchise again, because I sat down to watch Scream 1996, an undisputed 5-star movie that continues to hold itself up as my favourite movie of all time. We followed that up on the 12th with Scream 2, which I gave a 4 stars, with Scream 3 and Scream 4 following on the 13th, gaining a 3.5 stars and a 4.5 stars respectively. Which then meant on the 14th it was finally time to sit down and watch a new Scream movie in cinemas. My second cinema trip of the year, one of my favourite franchises of all time. How did I find it? 4 stars. I'll say nothing more for now. Also on the 14th, I watched Interstellar for the first time, further cementing the idea that I'm just not a fan of Christopher Nolan movies, and I gave that a 3. On the 15th, I watched both of the Pacific Rim movies. The first one I ended up giving a 3.5 stars because I did have fun with the CGI battles, even if the characters were really weak. But then Pacific Rim Uprising was just it was a 2 star. It was nothing at all. Honestly, if this was the first film that I ever watched of John Boyega, I'd be convinced that the guy couldn't act to save his life, because the script is just so weak that everyone has a hard time trying to sell this movie. Anyway, on the 15th, I also went to see Scream again in cinemas. This time I gave it a 5 star, equaling the rating that I've given the original. Again, I'll say nothing for now. On the 16th, I watched Malignant after picking it up on Blu-ray, and it was a film that I wanted to see last year in cinema, but Reese was too much of a pussy to agree to go and see it. And honestly, I'm gonna say Reese knew what he was thinking here. There is a fun movie here somewhere. For me, it was a 3 star. I didn't think it was anything spectacular. I wasn't necessarily blown away by it, but I can tell you for a fact that I was scared. James Wan continues to do a very good job of making me feel the fear that he intends on making the audience feel. Also on the 16th, I watched the first Fantastic Beasts film. I gave it a 7 out of 10. I thought it was a lot of fun. Moving on to the 17th, I watched the second Fantastic Beasts film, and I had even more fun. I had a lot of fun with it. I gave it a 4 star. I'm sorry. 17th was apparently a really busy day for films, because I also watched the final 2 Mission Impossible movies that I haven't had a chance to watch yet. Those being Rogue Nation, which I gave a 4 star, and Fallout, which has become one of my favourite action movies of all time, I gave a 5 star. Rounding off the 17th, I watched Attack the Block for the first time, which is a film that showed me that John Boyega can act. Thank you. Gave it a 3.5, thought it was a lot of fun. On the 18th, I went to see Scream again. It was 5 stars. Again, I'll say nothing for now. The 19th, we followed up Scream with a Netflix movie called Brazen. It's a 1 star. I don't want to talk about this movie anymore. On the 20th, American Psycho, my second time watching this movie. I gave it a 4 star. I think it's really great. I love Christian Bale's performance in it. 23rd, I watched Scream again. Not 2022, I actually went back and watched the 1996 one again. Every time I watch this movie, it just further distances itself. You know, as much as I love Spider-Man No Way Home, it's currently here, and Scream just keeps going like this, man. Also on the 23rd, I watched Tick Tick Boom again, another rewatch, and I gave it 5 stars. And then to round out January, because yes, I didn't watch a whole lot at the end of this month, I finally watched Peter Rabbit. All my friends from Twitter who are obsessed with Daisy Ridley like I am can now finally stay quiet because I have watched the movie, and I gave it a 2 star. I'm sorry, right? Daisy Ridley could give an Oscar-nominated voice performance, but if you've got James Corden, you can fuck off. I'm not calling your movie good. So that is everything that I've watched this month. What have you been watching this month? What's been your favourite first watch, your favourite rewatch, and the biggest rating shock from this episode? Feel free to let me know all of that and more in the comments below. Feel free to subscribe so you don't miss next month's episode, along with this month's Jords Awards. That's been everything from me. I've been Jordan. I hope you're all having a fantastic day, and I will see you all in the next one.